My name is Sherry Asberry. As you can see, I am currently a high school math teacher at a charter high school in the Inland Empire. And I've been a teacher for over 30 plus years. I'm a grandma,
Yeah.
mom. Yeah.
Yeah, we were just talking
Mhm.
about it. Like I said, I'm gonna be a grandfather, and I'm excited about it. Um, we found out not. I made a video about it, but we found out prior to that, maybe about a couple weeks prior to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we already knew already, but nobody else knew. Nobody else knew that we were gonna be grandparents, and
Mhm.
so then that little video, we made that little video right there. So, but I'm excited, and it's a whole different chapter of my life, and it's exciting. You had any tips? You got any tips for being a grandparent?
You know, um, boy, when you're a grandparent, you have a different way of looking at parenting. You know what I'm saying? And raising kids when you're a grandparent, you have like a
Mhm.
second chance to
Yeah,
maybe do some of those things,
yeah.
that you just didn't have the energy or the consciousness to even think about
Hmm.
when you were a parent. And so I have had the opportunity to do a little bit more research about parenting
Hmm.
strategies that I didn't even think about or have the energy to even think about when I was raising my kids and working full time.
Yeah, one
Mhm.
concern that I have is vaccines.
Hmm.
That concerns me. When I was,
Mhm.
when I had my kids super young, I didn't even think about that. It didn't even cross my
Right.
mind. Right? It didn't even cross
Hmm.
my mind. But you hear all the things going on with vaccines and
Right.
autism, and I'm concerned about that. And so like I do want to have a conversation with my son, and I just ask him about it. Like, what do you think about that? It's ultimately his choice, and but it's just a thought that goes through my head. Like,
Right.
maybe we do some research. What are the necessary vaccines, and what ones can we just say, hey, we're gonna hold off on that? Can we do that? These are thoughts that are going through my head that I want to have a conversation with my son.
Yeah, and because now you have that like space in your brain and more wisdom and knowledge and experience, and so you can actually take a look at those things where when you were younger you were just like, hey, this is the thing we do, we
Yeah.
vaccinate our children.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So that's crossed my head, but yeah, I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to it, and it's gonna be a fun chapter. It's weird to think that you're gonna have grandchildren in school, and you're still in school, in whatever capacity, a teacher or assistant principal or principal, whatever. But you're gonna be in a school while your grandchild is in a school, and that's a weird thought to have too.
Yeah, it is, because then you think about who will be your kids teacher, your grandkids teachers,
Yeah, and
and what will education look like for them, and how can you influence that?
yeah, and I'm hoping that they take good care of my grandchild.
Exactly. You're like this.
To take good care of my grandchild. So those they're just thoughts that are going through my head, and yeah, it's exciting. I'm excited, but again, I'm glad to have you here. It's
Yes.
been a full year. It's been a full year
Hmm.
since you've been on the podcast. So you've been on the podcast a year ago,
Hmm.
and we were talking about building a relationship with students with difficult behavior, and different strategies, behavior management strategies, and
Hmm.
and let's share the update. How did your year go?
My year went well. Yeah, when I first came on the podcast, one of the questions that I was really asking myself was, is there something that I'm not currently doing in my classroom that could make a difference, in the academic achievement, collaboration, and just the classroom culture? And
Hmm.
so after our conversation last year, um, I realized that if my students weren't feeling connected to me, or they didn't trust me, or they didn't believe that I genuinely cared about them, then that would make or that would impact, the lessons,
Hmm.
testing, how they even interacted with each other,
Hmm.
and me and the classroom. And so um, I decided to do SEL, or some SEL activities in my classroom to start working on building those positive relationships with
I-
students.
And what were those SEL activities?
So, the main thing that I focused on was every day giving my students an attendance question. So when they walked in, I would have it projected on the overhead screen so they could have an opportunity to like look at the question and
Yeah.
think about it, before I went to each student individually. Because,
Hmm.
I mean, even yourself, sometimes somebody will ask you a question, and you're like, oh no,
Yeah.
they're just
Yeah.
asking you. So that gave them an opportunity to even talk to each other about the question before I went around to each individual student to ask them the question.
Okay. What was an example of the question? Maybe some educators who watch this could use what you did.
Okay, so like one of the questions that I asked was, what do you think is the most interesting looking animal?
Yeah.
So students, I would go around to each student and they would tell me what that was. And somebody would say like an anglerfish. And I'm like, well, what's an anglerfish? And I would just go to Google and Google it and project it on the screen. And whatever animal they told me, I would just, project that on the screen. And sometimes when I was doing this, I felt like it was taking a long time, because I was like, this is cutting into my time. But as the year went on, I realized the that it was giving me more bang for my buck, you know,
Mhm.
because actually it also gave me an opportunity to kind of like calm down and ease into the lesson or to the
Yes.
day versus just like, we're going like right in
Yes.
on this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that start how you start your day. You want to ease into your day, just like you
Hmm.
ease into your morning. Like I'm on vacation, I like to ease in my morning, right? I'm waking
Hmm.
up, I like to drink my coffee, I like to take it a little bit slow, and then get into whatever I have to do. And I think
Yeah.
it's the same in the classroom where you're just easing into the day. And a question like that, something soft, a soft question to get
Hmm.
everybody awake and talking and connecting and even laughing at some of the things that they're probably saying is a great way to start it. And then you can be like, all right, like let's now we can start the day.
Right.
And I'm sure that they built relationships with you as you're going around talking to each one of them and with each other, and
Hmm.
you created an atmosphere where it was okay to express an idea or an opinion, to
Hmm.
talk.
Yeah. And I think pretty much immediately after our talk last year, I started looking around on Instagram, because that's where I'm at most of the time, to see if there were teachers on there that were doing some of the activities or things that I would want to do in my classroom. And so I ran across a few teachers and I like purchased some of their activities. So like there's a teacher and her Instagram handle is history from the middle, or kind of sort of teacher.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I don't know if you've heard of these people.
No.
Um, but yeah, so I would go to their sites and I purchased some things for them, and I use those activities initially. And then one resource that's free, um, it's called the First Five.
Hmm.
So if you go onto the First Five website, they have um, activities for the first 5 minutes
Yeah.
of class,
Yeah.
or like even when you're standing at the door waiting for students to come in, they have the questions you could ask them, like little hand signals you could do, jokes you could tell,
Hmm.
questions to ask, like the attendance questions that I would ask, and some of them would be multiple choice. So like some of the days when I'm like, my first period was always my guinea pigs, right? So
Yeah.
sometimes I would do a question with them and I'm like, ooh, that didn't hit.
Yeah.
So I'm like, let me just do one of these multiple choice type questions versus something where they have to think, deeper, or, be more vulnerable or something like that.
Yeah, I remember when I taught middle school and I had multiple periods, and I would, the first time I told a joke in the first period, it might have went flat.
Yeah.
By the time third or fourth period came around, I was ready. Like,
Yeah. It,
it's
yeah.
funny that you could, first period is a guinea pig, and you could,
Hmm.
by the time you get to third or fourth, you're feeling good and
Yeah.
you're able to say these
Got all
jokes.
the kinks worked out.
Yeah, and then sixth period, you're kind of tired and you're just like, it might be a little slow, but yeah, you work out the kinks. Absolutely.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. And then so you when you did these things, you saw a noticeable change in with the relationship that you had with your students.
Yeah, and I saw a noticeable change even within myself, because I'm an
Good
older
point.
teacher. And I remember, in previous years getting to this point where I would be like, I cannot remember my student's name. Like, am I getting old? Am I, like what's going on
Yeah,
with my brain? But that activity of asking my students an attendance question every day and then going and saying each person's name every day for however many days, that made a big impact on me. Even just knowing everybody's name, you know, in the class or in
yeah,
all of my classes.
yeah. That's good. I know. I remember when I was a teacher, we play a game. It would be like you have to do a motion and you have to say your name. So, for instance, you would have to go like John,
Yeah.
whatever the motion was, or I don't know, Maria,
Uh huh.
whatever it was, a motion and your name. And so
Oh.
we would go around and say a motion and the name, and then everybody try to do it. I'd be like, who wants to try to say somebody's name? Who thinks they can name everybody in the classroom?
Oh.
And then you
Hmm.
pick somebody, and then they're like, okay, who's that person? They'll know. Then they do their motion. If they don't know, like, oh, that's Maria. And then if you wipe your head, oh, that's John. John wipes his head. And you just go around and you just say it. And then as a teacher,
Hmm.
you're just watching all this happen. Like you're like, okay, that's Maria, that's John, that's.
Right.
And then when it's like after like three or four people go, you're like, all right, let me give it a shot. Let me try. And you've already practiced so many times already. So you're like, that's this person, that person, that person. They're like, oh my God, she or he knows my name. That's amazing.
Right.
And so like that's just something. And we would practice this, for the first, month or so where I try to get everybody in the classroom to know everybody's name.
Hmm.
And I pick different people in the morning. Like, wait, you wanted to give it a shot? They're gonna do their motion again, and give it a shot. See if you can do it. Great way to get to know everybody's name, and that's when you know the people in the classroom, and it's hard to be mean to them. I always feel
Hmm.
like if you know them by name, then it's hard for you to be mean to them. But if you don't know them by name, then it's
Hmm.
easy for you to be rude and mean, and because you don't know this person. So,
And even if you're not mean and rude, it seems like you are. You get
mm-hmm,
what I'm saying? Like
mm-hmm,
that's the impression because people start feeling like, oh, I don't matter.
that's
And
correct.
so even though you might not have the intention of making someone feel like they don't matter, that's the way that it comes across.
That's correct. And we would do other little games at the beginning of the year. We do something called Taco Bell. I'm sure there's different versions of this, but it's essentially this game where this you'd have to do this maybe like the second month of the school year,
Hmm.
where you put somebody in the front of the classroom and they're facing like the wall or somewhere else, and then they say taco, and then somebody else says bell.
Hmm.
Somebody else says Bell. And so the person sitting in the chair will say Taco, and then Robert will say Bell, and then I'll say to the student, who was that? Whose voice was that? And they'll be like,
Ooh.
oh, that's Robert. Good, good. We'll try again. And I go to a different room, a different person, like, who's that? And if they got it wrong, I would switch. I'm like, all right, you come here, you're gonna sit in their chair. Now you're gonna do it. You get to know everybody's listening real closely, get to know people's voices, and that's a good way to connect as well. They get so good at it that I have to after they sit in the chair, they
Uh-huh.
start to remember like, oh, so and so sits over there. That it might be one of those. So and so sits
Right.
in the back. That might be.
Hmm.
So they got so good at it where I'd have to like switch everybody. I'd be like, all right, sit right here.
Oh, like
All right,
where they're
everybody switch
sitting.
chairs. Yeah, switch chairs. Switch chairs because
Yeah.
they're gonna get it. So switch
Yeah.
chairs, and they can't change their voice. They can't like you just say Bell, Taco Bell. That's all you can say. And so that's another good way to get them to connect and have fun and get to know each other.
Hmm.
Just these little tiny icebreaker type games where you take a little break from the curriculum,
Hmm.
you loosen up a bit, and you get to know each other. That's a good game as well.
I like that activity because one of the challenges that I do have with my students is them knowing each other's names. So, like, I would call someone's name, I'll be like, oh, Eric did this, or Eric went to the restroom, or where's Eric? And they're like, who's Eric? And I'm like, are you kidding me? We've been in
Yeah,
this class together all year and you guys don't know who Eric is. And
yeah,
so I like that activity. Um, and the name game, and connecting that to the name game you were talking about originally,
Yeah.
connecting that to something else, because we do have, our students can't earn like points for the day,
Hmm.
like school wide points, because we're doing PBIS. So that could be a way to be like every Friday or something like that. I don't know, Monday morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, who can name everyone in this class, or who thinks that they can name everybody just by their voice or something like
Yeah.
that?
So then toward the middle of the year, how did it start going when you started to make these connections? Was the year just going better for you as the time went on, or how did it go for you?
No, definitely, because as a teacher, there were some times in the classroom where I felt like disconnected from the students myself. So it's like it's them and me
Hmm. Hmm.
instead of us together. And then I was doing these types of activities too, where it didn't work for me to feel like an outsider in my own classroom.
Hmm.
So we would be doing activities where I wanted the students to talk to each other. A lot of those kind of activities where they would talk to each other, and so just even having them do that, if they didn't trust me, then just having them buy into the things that I'm giving them,
Yeah.
didn't work either. So I could see that helped, even with the activities that they were doing with each other in the class.
How did you provide structure for them to be able to just talk in class? Like there had to be some sort of structure
Oh,
laid out.
yes, right. So I'm not sure if you've heard of like building thinking classrooms,
Hmm.
and I also use this curriculum called mathematics,
Hmm.
where, well, because since I teach math, one of the things that I want students to do is have an experience of the subject before we actually start doing problems related
Yeah.
to the thing. And so I would I would like to start off the lesson with some kind of either building thinking classroom activity or mathematic activity. And so they would be up at the board with other students, which were randomly selected.
Good. Good.
Like, I don't you don't get to choose who you're
That's
in a
right.
group with. And you know what? That ends up backfiring on them sometimes too. Trying to like select who they're going to be in a group with.
Yeah.
But um so I would randomly select the groups, and then they would go to the board and have to talk through these activities. And then I could see, like, what do you already know about this topic versus me just going in and,
Hmm.
doing direct instruction on the topic.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, now that I think about it, though, that's also social and emotional, learning activities. Just doing those type of things where they're talking to each other about the topic versus me just standing up there delivering a direct instruction on the topic.
Yeah. Yeah. And um, I just feel like when you do something like that, when you give them opportunity to be part of the instruction versus just talking at them,
Hmm.
there's more buy-in. There's definitely more
Hmm.
buy-in. But I feel like sometimes there's this fear that educators might have where if they're not in total control of everything, if they're not in total control of the lesson and who talks and you sit right here, you can't move and you can't talk and you just there's a fear of just letting go a little bit and allowing the students to talk freely, to give their opinion, to move about the classroom. Um, how would you help educators who are fearful of, let's say, just letting loose just a bit and allowing students to contribute to the lesson, allowing students to talk more?
I think just from my experience and just like some research that I've read about having students like talk about a topic before you give some instruction on the topic, the idea that students come with a background of knowledge, and we're building on that background. they aren't normally coming into something with no knowledge,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
so we're building on that knowledge. And so I read something where the most beneficial thing for students coming in is not like even to necessarily start being educated earlier, like let's go to 3 years old and let's go, you know what I'm saying? It's like, what experiences have they lived in life? Because if they live these experiences, they can draw upon those experiences when we're in the classroom. When I talk about something, then they've had this experience of traveling or something, oh, my parents, we went to Washington, or we went, to the beach, or oh, even
Yeah,
just a little, a simple thing as like going to the beach.
yeah, yeah,
We could
and
relate that to something.
I feel like it's respectful. It's
Mhm,
respectful when you allow them to share their experiences and not assume that they don't know anything. That's respectful. Like if I were to go into a room and somebody just assumed that I didn't know something
mhm.
and they just talked at me,
Oh, yeah.
I'd be like, that's a little rude. That's a little
Yeah.
disrespectful for you to assume that I don't know anything about this topic. And so
Mhm,
I feel like it's the same in the classroom where you go in there and you say something like, well, let's talk about it. We're talking about whatever it is.
mhm,
World War II. Who knows about World War II? What do you know about World
mhm,
War? What let's hear about it. What do you know about war?
mhm,
Let's just talk about war. What do you know about war? And they're gonna have they're gonna have an opinion, and then you build upon that opinion. And I just feel like that's just respectful. And when you just demonstrate respect inside the classroom,
mhm,
you build a better environment, learning environment, a respectful learning environment. I think that everything in the classroom should be based off of mutual respect. As an educator, you want to teach respect. You want to model respect. You want to overdo respect with the students. You might pause and say, I respect this class too much for me to go ahead and, or I just say it. I
mhm,
respect you, and so I'm not. And it just that's what you want to grow inside the classroom. If you just grow a classroom with respect, all around, you're gonna have a good year.
mhm.
You're just gonna have a good year. So stuff like that. Asking them, what do you think about that? Respectful.
And I think too, having if teachers allow themselves to hear what students know about something, you learn something too.
Yep.
I've learned a lot of things from students, and I learned a lot of things where I'm like, I took what they did and I'm like, and I'm showing that to the kids versus the way the book demonstrated something,
Hmm. Hmm.
so I love doing that, and I love having with their agreement, or not just like putting them on the spot, but just like, hey, would you be willing to talk to the rest of the class, or can I send some kids over to you to talk about this, so I think that really, if teachers allowed themselves to hear what students thought, I think we could learn a lot too, and we
Yeah.
could use that to our advantage.
And I think that the beginning of the year starts. I don't know when you guys start, but we start in like mid August.
Mhm,
I start the 29th. I'm going back next Tuesday, but we start mid August, and I feel like when you start mid August, you're gonna have to lay out the ground rules, and you can share the ground rules. You could ask the students, what do you think is what do you think we should do in this classroom? What
mhm,
are some rules, some procedures that and just kind of go over it with. You could do that with the students, but I think it's important that you just lay out those whatever it is that your agreements, whatever you want to call it. Um, at the beginning of the year, and you make sure that you back that up. So whatever you say you're going to do, you have to back it up and
mhm,
model it. And I think that this August, September, October, I think are the most important months of the whole year. And
mhm,
if you don't get those months right, you're going to have a bad year the rest of the year.
mhm.
What do you think about that?
Well, I have a friend, and I feel like she has a really good relationship with her students. Like if you go in her classroom, you can just really tell. that things are working in our classroom. And I feel like sometimes teachers don't even know how they created that. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? They're like a natural at it.
Hmm.
And and for somebody like me, there are some things that I'm really good at. I feel like I'm personable, right? And um and I have gotten to the point where like I know my stuff as far as math, but
Yeah.
then I realized, okay, that's not enough. Like knowing my stuff in math is not enough for my students. There's more in order to, have the classroom or the students being as successful as they can be in the classroom. Now I can't
Mhm.
even remember where we're going.
Well, we're talking about the beginning of the school year. We're talking about the
Yeah.
beginning of the school year, and some people, just as natural for some people, like your neighbor, and and for you, you're talking about yourself, and maybe you do it a different way.
Right. I think for me, I have to be more intentional and thoughtful about the things that I'm doing like every single day in the classroom. So like this day I want to do this like in order to set the scene for the year.
Hmm.
There's certain orders of things that I want to do to set the scene for the year to have a successful year, or for for next month. you
Yeah.
know and for the month after that and up to January. And it's interesting because one of the things that I did this year was the on Instagram, the teacher that has my kind of sort of teacher. One of the things I started doing was when I was absent, I wouldn't necessarily give them a lesson per se.
Hmm.
Would it be a sheet of math problems? Like one time I gave them these slides, and on the slides, it was asking questions about me. So
Hmm.
one of the questions was like, if Mrs. Asbury was late to class or to school, what do you think her excuse would be? Right?
Yeah.
So like it was just like funny questions like that, and
Yeah.
they were all about me. And so they had the opportunity to do that instead of 20 or a page full of math problems. And so just kind of like not being even so serious about things all the time, makes
That's
a
a good point.
difference.
That's a good
Yeah.
point. You know, for me at the beginning of the year, I was serious at the beginning of the year, super
Yeah.
serious at the beginning of the year. When it was August, I was serious. This is how you walk into the classroom. This is how
Hmm.
you sit. This is what you're doing.
Hmm.
Super serious, straight
Hmm.
face, super serious. Say good morning, everybody. Be polite. Keep everybody safe. When I saw somebody being unsafe, being loud, I'd be like, no, here's what we do in this classroom. This is what we're gonna
Hmm.
do. And I reinforce what we're doing in this classroom. And I did that for a good amount of time, but I would still open up to the students. Like I start my day out at the beginning of the year, like I think I've said this before, but I'd always start my day like, okay, before we start work today, does anybody have anything to share about anything? And
Hmm.
because I'm so serious at first, nobody wants to
Of
share about
course.
anything because
Hmm.
I'm just so serious.
Hmm.
I'm like, okay, I'll go first, and I would share about the most silliest things.
Hmm.
This is where they knew, like, okay, Mr. Vergara is not that serious. If he's talking
Yeah.
about his dog and how his dog peed on a tree and now the tree grows taller, like something like that, just something like I did take my anything. And the kids would be like, okay, he's not that serious, but he looks serious. And I'd keep sharing. And then eventually I'd have a kid that would say, oh, I want to share. Go ahead and share. And they would share whatever they did last night, whatever
Hmm.
they played, whatever video game, whatever music, wherever they went. I went to a laundromat, I went to eat McDonald's. What did you have at McDonald's? Oh, I like that too. I eat the two cheeseburgers too. I like the Happy Meal too, like. And so you make those connections. But that's how I eased into, like, okay, super serious,
Hmm.
and I'm holding you to this standard, but I'm going to share about my life to you. And I'm not going to hold anything back. This is everything. You're going to hear everything about me.
Hmm.
And I just shared, boom, everything from my kids, my wife, my hobbies, what I eat, where I went, what I like, what I dislike, everything. There was nothing that they did not know about me. They
Right.
knew everything about me.
Hmm.
And then they started to share about themselves. I gave them almost permission to be like, well, if Mr. Vergara is sharing, then I want to share too. I will. And so that started to build that relationship. And I think that at the beginning of the year too, you have to keep everybody safe.
Mhm.
That's key. You just have to keep everybody safe, and you got to do your very best. Not You got to hold that hard line when it comes to safety, because when students feel safe, then they're able to open up. They're able to talk, like you were saying, have these conversations. You had mentioned you have conversations with the kids. Well, if they feel safe, they could talk.
Mhm.
They could talk with their partners because you keep a safe environment. So
And
I
I
think.
think the attendance questions like helped me with that opening up because I wasn't, I could have something that's like a little structured for
Hmm.
me that I
Hmm.
could draw from.
Yeah.
Like I didn't have to think of something every day. And we even got to the point where students would create questions. They're like, tomorrow, can you ask this question? And
Yeah.
so I would go and I create a slide, based on the question that they wanted to ask.
We would also do like would you rather questions. Like,
Mhm.
would you rather be stung by 5 scorpions or by like 20 bees?
Right.
Which one would you rather be stung by? And
Yeah,
do you like McDonald's or do you like Burger King? Which one is
right.
better?
Yeah,
Like,
who has the
eh,
best fries?
yeah, is the Big
Mhm.
Mac better than the Whopper?
Yeah.
Like which one would you? And you just ask these questions, and it leads to connection. It leads to that connection, and you want to do these things at the beginning of the school year, hold a hard line, but then open up slightly, slightly, slightly. And I'm a believer in it's your classroom first. Like you dictate everything at the beginning of the year. Then
Mhm.
once the students know, like, okay, they know the rules, they know how this is run, this classroom is run, then you start to ease up and you start to let go a little bit. And you're like, okay, kids know what to do. They know what to do. I'm gonna let go a little bit. I'm gonna let them be. I'm gonna let them be. And when they make a mistake, you just quickly correct them. Like, hey, we don't do that. We don't do that in this classroom. Come on. Do I have to go back and go? No, mister, you don't have to. Okay, cool. Then don't do that. You
Mhm.
know what we do in here. And so that's how you know when they've internalized what is expected in the room. Like you've set a standard and they're like, okay, oh yeah, you're right, we don't do that here in this classroom. Yeah, let's not do that. And you don't got to punish them, you don't got to yell at them, you don't got to do, because you just held that hard line at the beginning of the school year.
Mhm.
And I think that teachers are going to start the school year and they're going to try to hold a hard line, but then for whatever reason, I don't know, things fall apart. Maybe, I don't know, why do things fall apart for some teachers? Is it There's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons why it falls apart. Why do you think it falls apart for teachers?
Well, who wants to keep that up though? You know what I'm saying? Like who if you are a genuinely loving, caring person, who would want to keep that up for the whole year? I mean,
I keep it up for as long as it takes for them to internalize
mhm.
that, this is what we do here.
Mhm.
Because if I don't keep it up, let's say I let up the first week. I say this is how you're supposed to enter the classroom, and the first couple of days I hold them to that hard line, but then the third day, I just let them do whatever. They could just go whatever. And I say, this is a seating arrangement, but then all of a sudden, I just allow them to sit wherever they want now. Like some
Mhm.
kids, like, oh, I want to sit here. All right, it's okay to sit there. Then the kids are starting to realize, like, well, Mr. Vergara, he doesn't, his word doesn't mean that much. Because if he said one thing and then we're able to do this thing, we just give him a little pushback and we could do it, then his word doesn't mean that much.
Mhm.
And so for me, this is just for me.
Mhm.
I would hold that hard line for as long as it took, because I've went the other route where I was just too loose. Like I was
Mhm.
just too loose at the beginning, and then I was playing catch up all year long, trying to, like, man, these kids don't listen to me. Why don't these kids listen to me? I don't get why these kids. And the whole year I'm just trying to get them back to focus and listen to me, and I just couldn't do it. And I've done that multiple years where I've just lost the
What
class.
about the opposite? What about a teacher who feels like they have to hold a hard line the whole year? Because I mean, I wouldn't want to be a student in that classroom either.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. Like never letting loose
Yeah.
ever.
Mhm.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Never letting loose, even when it's time to let loose.
Mhm.
Even when, you know what, I'm gonna let loose a little bit. And it's time to let loose, but they never do, and they're just like, oh yeah, that's not good as well.
Hmm.
That's definitely not good too.
Either
And
extreme.
either extreme, you don't want to be in either extreme.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I hope that you know, this new school year, when the year, and you know what, I feel like this new school year is going to be one of the most difficult school years that we all are going to go through. You know, like I feel like, you know, just the whole budget cut idea, the whole idea of Trump holding back money, you know,
Hmm.
6 point whatever $billion, which will affect after school programs, which will affect, you know, the hiring of coaches for EL students, which will affect just a bunch of different things, teacher PD, like just all
Hmm.
these things. Then you got the ICE raids that are happening, and
Yeah,
that's
I'm
sending fear.
curious. Yeah,
Yeah,
to
that's
see
sending
what
fear to
that effect
everybody.
is going to be. Hmm.
Yeah, and then that's going to affect attendance. And then when
Hmm.
there's no attendance, then when schools don't get the funding that they need to pay for social emotional programs, to pay
Hmm.
for your school social worker, to pay for your
Counselors.
counselors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So like I feel like this is going to be a very interesting year, you know. I don't know
Yeah,
what to
yeah,
expect.
it definitely is going to be an interesting year. Um, but yeah, we'll see like how things fall out this year.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, yes, I mean, I'm really interested to see when I go back what they're gonna say,
Hmm.
um, and I'm curious to see how students are gonna react and how families are
Hmm.
gonna react. You know, like to go to be fearful when you go to school is that's not a way to learn. That's not good. That's not a good learning environment. You
Hmm.
know, so
And I think, for me, like I don't have any personal connections to it yet. You get what I'm saying?
yeah,
But but once I go back to school, if there are students who are dealing with that, then that's a whole different story or experience for me to even look at and draw on,
yeah.
once the school year starts.
Yeah, yeah. I
Hmm.
mean, it's just something that, again that crosses my mind. You know, there's a lot of times where I'm sitting by my computer and I, I do videos and I write and I'm just thinking like, okay, like these are some things that are gonna come up, and how are you gonna handle it? How are you gonna address it? And I guess the only thing that I could think of is just like, again, just continue to show love, continue
Hmm.
to be there for the students, continue to help out as best as you can, um, and not be fearful. Like that's one thing that I keep telling myself. Like, you don't have to be fearful. You don't have to like, just be strong.
Hmm.
Be just strong and positive, and do whatever you can to boost other people up and that
Hmm.
kind of deal. So
And I
we'll,
know one thing that I've thought about is like, I did these attendance questions, every day last year. But like what more can I do? What other ways can I incorporate these social and emotional learning activities in my classroom, even though I teach math, like what other strategies can I use besides the one that I used last year? So I'm
yeah.
looking at that too.
Yeah, I mean, and you had mentioned this, I think, earlier, but like when you pair up people
Hmm.
with in groups where they don't know where they're gonna be, you use equity sticks or something like that. Whatever you're doing,
Hmm.
that's a way to teach social emotional, stuff, because you're teaching them how to communicate with people that they don't normally talk to, and pair up
Hmm.
and teamwork and that kind of deal. You're teaching them perseverance in math because some of these problems are difficult and they have to persevere, and you're teaching them how to be resourceful because they have to look in their notes on the computer and ask you and ask a partner to try to figure out a math problem. So you're teaching them how to be resourceful, and all these things that math in my mind are, you could teach. Yeah, you're teaching math, but you're teaching so many other skills. And I think that if you just emphasize that with the students, where like, yeah, we're learning about this math, but we're also learning how to be resourceful, because in life you might not know how to do something, and what are you gonna do? You're just gonna give up, Or are you
Mhm.
gonna go ahead and ask somebody? You're gonna look on the computer, you're gonna do your own research and then find an answer for what you're looking for. That's like math. You're doing this problem, you don't get it, now what? Look up a video, look in your book, ask me, ask a partner, do something, but don't sit there and be helpless
Right.
because you can't be helpless. So these skills.
It's a beautiful thing when students teach each other.
Oh yeah.
I
Oh
love
yeah.
that. I love when they're working with somebody that they've never worked with before and they realize, "Oh, I did not know, you know, that Madison knew that or Maddox knew that or whoever." So, and even me, I mean, I can just think about when I was in high school and, I knew Mark as a basketball player, like that he was a good basketball player, like in the classroom. Well, maybe not
Mhm.
so great, but he was a great basketball player. But we had this hiking experience that we went on and Mark could read a map. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's nice when students can see the experiences or use the experiences that other people have to gain knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's important you just create that home away from home type of environment.
Mhm.
That home away from home, that they feel safe in your classroom and this is their home away from home. And then that's when like learning starts to really happen, where they feel like, oh, I feel loved here, I feel connected, I feel like the people in here, not only the teacher but the students, this sounds like it looks like there's other students in here that care about me.
Mhm.
And I want to perform better, not for everybody here, I want to lift up this whole room, and
Mhm.
that kind of stuff, that's the stuff that we all want to work toward, I guess, as
Right.
educators.
I like that idea. I like that idea of, you know, us working together for each other.
Hmm.
Not it's not just all about me, but we're working together for each other.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
that just gives me some other ideas of
yeah.
things to work on in the classroom this year.
What are you gonna do differently this year? Is there anything you're gonna change?
Um, one thing that I really would love to do is have other teachers see the benefit
Hmm.
of using social and emotional learning activities in their classroom. Like, I would really love to be a promoter of that or you know
Yeah.
to have some other teachers to see the difference because teaching if you're teaching certain ways it's a drain, man.
Hmm.
And you're more likely to leave the profession early
Hmm.
because of that struggle. And
That's
so
right.
I want teachers to have more joy in their day too. um
Yeah.
mhm,
I think that's important. I think that you have to have more joy in your day.
mhm.
You have to find ways, because it can be stressful. It could be stressful as an educator, and you have to find ways to bring joy. And
Yeah.
that could be anything. It could be little things like you're saying, making these connect. When you make connections with people in the room that you're in front of for whatever amount of time every single
Uh-huh.
day, you're gonna
Mhm.
feel way better
Mhm.
than if you're battling with these people in front
Yeah.
of you every single day. You're just in a
Right.
constant battle. So you
Right.
got to find a way to make these connections, a way to make it work to where you're building these relationships with these students,
Mhm.
so that you're not fighting these students every single day. And then you got to find outlets, I feel, outside of school to like release some. You got to go for those walks. You got to
Mhm.
watch your diet. You got to make sure you eat healthy, drink plenty of water, get that sleep that you need, exercise when you need to, because if it's easy to just go to work and then crash out, go to
Mhm.
work, come home, and maybe crash out, like I feel, for instance, now, like I'm 48 years old. My kids are already older. My son's back from college, but he's gonna leave. He's gonna leave in September. And so when I come home, it's really just me and my wife, and it's easy to be like, let me just crash out right here
Right.
because I have no other responsibilities. When I was a
Right.
young father, it was like I come
Dinner.
home, dinner,
Yeah.
homework,
Yep.
all these
Mhm.
things, bath
Sports.
time, yeah, sports,
Yep.
you're a chauffeur, you have all
Yep.
these things you're doing. And then, but now like I get home and I'm like, I'm like, "Oh, well, there's I could walk I walk my dog," like, and so
My
it's easy
dog
to
needs me.
yeah, it's easy to crash out, go to sleep. So I feel like you need things. You need that go for a walk. You need that let's exercise. You need these things to keep you stimulated because if you don't, then you get drained and I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that working with kids and making those connections keeps you young. I feel
Hmm.
you connect you if you're connected to the youth, if you're connected to the kids, you're connected to your high school kids, and you make that connection, and you're not fighting them, and it's not you versus them, but it's us. This is
Yes.
us.
Yeah.
You rejuvenate. You're like, I feel like part of this. I'm still young, I feel good. And that's how I feel at least. I feel like when I make connections with the students that I work, I'm assistant principal or special education, but when I make these when I'm doing supervision at lunchtime, when I'm in the classroom, when I'm making these connections, that I feel it rejuvenates me. It gives me energy, and I look for it. I look for
Mhm.
these moments of energy to get me through my day because I need it. There's times where I'm tired. I need that zap of energy from somebody.
Yeah.
You know,
They
so
definitely provide excitement and and energy in your life. It's not never a dull moment in a teenager's life.
no, no, it's never a dull moment. Absolutely, it's never a dull moment, and you just need to be connected to the youth as best as you possibly can.
Yeah,
So
it keeps us young. And I know but sometimes people will be like, "How do you know that song?" I'm like, "Hey, I teach high school."
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's not
true.
like necessarily the music I would, go to
Yeah,
look for, but I teach high school, so that's how I know these things.
yeah. How do you keep yourself? Do you exercise? Do you try? How do you take care of yourself when teaching so stressful?
You know, one thing that I was thinking to myself, like toward the end of this school year, was like, what are the things that I need to put in place for myself to
Mm,
be the best me, you know?
mm,
And so one of those things is like I've been going for a walk every day. That really helps, to just like get up, get outside, be intentional,
mm.
working on my health. Um, has been something I've been working on this summer, like my hips and my knees and my back.
Yeah.
Um, Making sure that I get good sleep
Mhm,
during the night, making sure that I'm eating healthy, that I have fruits and vegetables,
mhm.
things that make me feel good. And make sure, I'm cooking my own meals.
That's good.
I'm saving money. Like whatever those things are that I know will make me um happier or entering life more positively. Those are the things that I'm looking at, like what are those things, and putting those things in place, because I know at the beginning of the summer it was a little difficult because you start the summer and you're like, oh, I don't have to go to work, and you're just like in your pajamas all day, you know and
Yeah.
so I was like, ooh, it was getting me into this funk.
Yeah.
And so I said, I really have to be more intentional about what I'm doing every day.
Yes.
And so that's what I did. I was like, okay, you got to get up in the morning and you're going to walk, and then you're going to do, your stretches and the foam roller. And
Yeah.
so now instead of my calendar being like kind of blank, I have stuff in there
That's good.
that I'm doing um to live my best possible life.
That's good. One of the things I've been doing is trying to get 15,000 steps in a
Woo.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's like almost 7 miles, about 7 miles sometimes, a day. So, like, I'll go for a walk in the morning and then maybe a little bit in the afternoon, and
If you have
then
to knock out the rest of those steps.
yeah, and then at the end of the night. So it gives me 3 opportunities really
Right.
if I were to get out and walk maybe 2 miles here, 2 miles there, and 2 miles later on, and
Hmm.
I enjoy it. It's a lot, and I've been doing it for maybe like a week and a half, 2 weeks, and
Yeah.
it was tiring the first week. I was like,
Yeah.
man, I'm tired. This is a lot of walking,
Yeah.
but I like it, and I hopefully I could continue to get 15,000 steps after when I start
When you
work.
go
We'll
back to
see.
work.
We'll see if I can get 15,000 steps in, but I've been, and they say, if you're trying to lose weight, they say that walking at a zone 2 pace where your heart
Mhm.
is at a zone 2, whatever that is for you,
Yeah.
um, you are able to burn fat faster.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I've been doing.
Yeah. Well, beside, I know you've been exercising because I've been looking at your
I lift
videos,
weights.
and
I definitely lift
have you
weights.
been wearing some kind of glasses?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I got the Meta glasses.
Meta.
I got the Meta glasses where you have a little camera right here. So I got
Yeah.
those glasses, and I'll record certain things. But I do try to work out. I try to work out like 3 times a week when it comes to weightlifting, maybe four
Hmm.
times a week. I could do it when I'm on vacation. I could walk and lift weights every day. I could do that every day. And when I'm not on vacation, I can't do
Hmm.
that, and it bugs me. It bugs
Yeah,
me that I can't do that.
I
Um,
know.
because I don't have the time. I just don't have the time to do it.
Or the energy, because I totally feel you, because I was talking to a friend about that I've been walking every day, and she's like, oh, are you going to keep that up, when we go back to work? And I'm like, oh, that means I'm going to have to wake up at such and such a time, so
Yeah,
that, because where I live, it's warmer than where you live,
yeah,
so walking in the middle of the day, I mean, you could do it, but who wants to?
yeah,
So
yeah.
to
You're right.
get, most of the steps in the morning,
Hmm.
because and then get some during the day, because the evening is going to be too
Yeah,
hot.
it's gonna be too. I like tomorrow. Tomorrow's Wednesday.
Right.
Tomorrow I'm gonna walk 2 miles. I wake up at 4:30 in the morning, so I'll get up. I'll leave my house at 5 a.m.
Oh, wow.
It's so cool in the morning, so it's a great time. So from
Yeah.
5 a.m. to like six, I
Hmm.
don't know, 6:15 or something like that. My walk will be over. I get back, then I'll walk my dog right after that. So that's another mile. So I could probably knock out
Okay.
3 miles in the morning,
Right.
and then after that, maybe like at I don't know, like at 9 o'clock tomorrow, I'll probably go to the gym right after that. And then I'll come back and I'll probably take a nap after all of that.
Yeah.
Um, but I've gotten two good workouts in already,
Right.
and I can't do that
Yeah.
when I'm working. It's impossible.
Well,
So
all you
I'm gonna
can do
miss
is
that.
do what you can do. You know what I'm saying? Because, like,
Yeah,
I remember when I first started tracking my steps, being appalled at how few steps I got. And so,
yeah,
so then what I started doing is, like, during the day in my classroom, I would be like passing out papers, or,
yeah,
when students would be like, can I pass? Nope, I'm passing these papers out. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? Like, I'm like, all these steps count for me.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'm gonna do my best to get 15,000 steps in
mhm.
for the rest of the year. That's the goal, to every day get 15,000 steps, and we'll see. On
Yeah,
a normal work day, like a normal work day, I would probably like in a regular day, I'd probably get in like 7,000 steps. I could probably get in 7,000 steps on a normal day
like
without
without even working out, or what?
with working out one
Oh, okay.
time, with working
Yeah.
out one time, and then
Mhm.
just walking at
Work.
work, and then
Mhm.
at the end of the day, at the end of my day, I should
Yeah.
have 7,000 steps.
Right.
I have to find a way to double that.
Right.
I have to
Exactly.
find a way to double that.
Goodness.
So, um, it's gonna be it's
A
gonna be interesting.
challenge.
Yeah, it's gonna be a
Yeah.
challenge. I'm gonna make a post about that. I'm gonna have my watch and be like, "Hey, this is this. I'm gonna do this."
You
So
better not be putting it on your dog, though. No.
no, no way, cheating. No way, cheating.
About 15,000.
Yeah, no, no. That's funny. But yeah. But anyway,
Yeah.
Sherry, we're coming toward the end of the podcast.
Yes.
And I just want to again thank you so much for being on the podcast and sharing some of your tips about, how you integrated social emotional learning inside the classroom, having those questions, having the students connect with one another, having them talk to one another, having them share and help each other out, and building
Hmm.
that environment where students are growing and learning. And again, thank you for sharing that. And it was great to talk to you 1 year later
I know.
after
Well,
the
thank you for having me back. It's so great to even be back, to just have a totally different mindset than when I met you the last time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good, and hopefully, I'm still doing this, and 1 year from now, in July, maybe we could talk again, and
Okay. Sounds good.
you could share your other ideas,
People are
because
gonna be tired of me. They're gonna be, oh, here comes
no, no,
Sherry.
not at all. I'll tell you what, this is interesting. Uh, I feel like this podcast where we're sharing ideas about how to build just good environments for students, how to build relationships with students. I feel like this needs to be said so that
Mhm.
that other educators could see that it's possible, and said from as many different voices as possible, and
Mhm.
said from different perspectives, from a high school perspective,
Mhm.
from an elementary school perspective, from a counselor's perspective, from an administrator's perspective. I feel like that's important. So just you coming here and giving your high school perspective of how to do it, I think that's what needs to be said, because there are people that don't know how to do it. They just don't know how to build these relationships and build that
Mhm.
environment, and I think it
Mhm.
just needs to be said.
Right.
So, thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me again.